Hey, it's Veronica. Welcome to the September 2021 Patreon inspirational video. So we're going to talk about harvest, but not just in the sense of abundance of things, material things. In September, we have the harvest moon, usually around September 20th, and the autumn equinox. And oftentimes we are just, focused on all the abundance. There's a plethora of abundance. You'll see the pumpkin photos that I'm going to show on the affirmation video. But I want to focus on that harmony that we have with not just the outer abundance, but the inner abundance. And are we nurturing ourselves and preparing ourselves for the winter and that deepness that we experience in the winter? They use the word fallow, to lie fallow. I love that word. We're going to go lie fallow. But in all seriousness, we want to move from this place of absolutely recognizing, having gratitude for the abundance. There's plenty to spare and to share. Abundance is mine now. I am grateful. And then also look at it in terms of what am I experiencing on a day-to-day basis that I consider abundance? Even through the complexities of life and being this pandemic, and I've been in the experience of grief. I've had 4 people that I really love die within the last 4 months. I just recently had a very dear friend die from a brain tumor a couple of weeks ago, and it's been very challenging. And yet I'm able to maintain a gratitude practice even though I'm in the midst of grief. And I consider that the sacred paradox. And in looking at what am I abundant in this moment? Well, love is always present, even though I'm in isolation and experience a lot of solitude, believe it or not. And I'm consciously choosing it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the phone and talking and chit-chatting, or, during the pandemic, there was a certain point where I was complaining so much, it became toxic. And I realized that, and bless the person that I was having this engagement with, because they were becoming very toxic too. And I'm like, I think we just need some space. This isn't very healthy for either one of us. So let's look at abundance and the harvest in regard to, first of all, what do you have on a physical, realm? So I'm grateful for, I call it my treehouse casita. I'm grateful that we have light and my air conditioning is working. I'm grateful for the bed that I have. I'm grateful for the running water. I'm grateful for the ability to pay my bills. I'm grateful that donors support the work that I do with children in mindfulness. I'm grateful to know that more than enough is also arriving to finish the entire year. I'm grateful for the friends I do have. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my creativity, the creativity that expresses as my life. I'm grateful for the awareness that I am kind and empathetic. I'm grateful for the strength that I have, that inner strength. I'm grateful for vulnerability. I'm grateful for authenticity. I'm grateful for discernment. I'm grateful that I stand for social justice, no matter how uncomfortable it is. I'm grateful that I was able to set boundaries with people and just say, that's not okay. I'm grateful that I gave space to people that no longer felt safe, especially during this pandemic and with my mother who experiences chronic bronchiectasis. So take a moment and just pause and drop into your heart and literally just put your hand on your heart. I find myself throughout the day with my hand on my heart to calm myself, because that buzz of worry can come in. I'm still contemplating, how am I going to have retirement? I spent 10 years sick. 15 years, 5 years working part-time, 10 years in nonprofit realm and ministry, and then these last, 7 years being a social entrepreneur, starting my own ministry, focus ministry and nonprofit. And that's where I have to tap into that. God is my source and supply. I'm abundantly blessed. All of my needs are met. I was looking at my morning pages when I started on May 18th, 1998, and I was in the midst of the long-term illness. I'd moved home and I was experiencing my nieces and nephews, but the pages that I read were painful. They were very painful. Just the lack of financial resources, the lack of actually having the ability to get the proper, holistic health care. But eventually I did and got well. Just the limitations that were there and the stress. And so I'm grateful that I'm where I am now, even though it continues to expand, and to know that I'm supported by the universe. That in these next 8 years, I'm downloading whatever idea so that I actually do have retirement and a beautiful home. So move into your heart and ask yourself, in this moment, what can I list that I'm grateful for? Outer and inner experiences, and move in that awareness So take a moment, put your hand on your heart. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ring the Koshi bells and just close your eyes if you're comfortable and just breathe into your heart and whisper to yourself every time something pops in your mind. Just say, I'm grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful. Two of my Koshi chimes. So open your eyes and let's stay in this feeling of appreciation and reflect upon the good that you do have. And reflect upon ways that you can share that good. Thank you. Like for right now, thank you. As a Patreon community member, you're sharing with me. And in that gratitude for the ability to share, in gratitude for what you experience and express, notice how that makes you feel. And imagine that you're out in a field and you're literally collecting the harvest. So September is considered the harvest moon. Sometimes they call it the corn moon. And corn was very sacred in the indigenous traditions. And so imagine you're walking these fields in gratitude to Mother Earth and to the corn and the harvest, and you're harvesting and you're collecting and you're feeling the bounty and you're bringing it in, you're putting it into the bags or the baskets or the buckets, and then you're going out and getting more, and there's more and there's more, and you share it with your community, and there's this reciprocal dance of abundance. What does that feel like? What does it feel like? And with this abundance, we're preparing for winter. So there has to be more than enough, not only for ourselves, but for our community. So imagine that you're stocking up and you're storing for the winter and you're getting ready to be all snuggly, because winter's where there's, where there's a lot of, the darkness and the sleeping and the going within, and we're preparing ourselves. So with the harvest, we literally harvest the goods, and then we uproot everything. So take a look at something that needs to be uprooted before you enter that darkness. What are you willing to leave behind? What is done? What is complete? Put it in the compost. Let it turn into something else. And then walk into this awareness, because in the promise of spring lies in the winter. And walk in this awareness that what am I slowing down for winter that I'm going to contemplate? What am I going to carry within the deep places of my heart during winter? What am I preparing for these next several months of fall? So that when winter arrives, I can graciously enter into the slumber and into that dark night of the winter solstice when the stars shine so bright. But what new way is being called for you to see? And what new way are you being called to literally be alive? Take a breath. Let me get my bell. I'm going to do 3 bells and breathe into that with the 3 breaths. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. So with the new moon that I think comes around the 7th, my nephew's birthday, is the release, and then there's that fullness and gratitude that we have with the full moon. So as you are preparing for the harvest, be grateful. As you uplift and pull the roots, be grateful. As you prepare and store whatever is necessary, joy and love and wisdom and harmony and compassion and empathy, so that it can be shared in plenitude for any time those who may need it, but especially yourself, be grateful. And notice if there's anything that you want to complete and need to complete before the winter slumber. And just prepare yourself in the joy of autumn, and especially when the leaves start transforming in their colors. The death process of the letting go of a leaf is so gorgeous. If only we could recognize the beauty of letting go. And just ask yourself, what is calling me for me to slow down and be present and contemplate? So the harvest month for me is about harmony. People use the word balance. I like the word harmony because balance always requires this teeter-totter tension, whereas harmony is just this almost circular energy in this flow. And it's about abundance. The abundance of all the materialistic stuff, but also the abundance of joy and love, peace, harmony. And even when you don't see it in the world, if you are well stored, which is what your spiritual practice does. It prepares you, it cultivates you, and then there's plenty of joy to share in the moment, then you can give out to the world. And then when you're in those moments, like I've been in grief, you're able to receive. And there's that reciprocal dance of that. So harvest, it's all about the harvest. We had rebirth for August because it's my birthday month. And so harvest is about realigning and just kind of shifting and noticing what needs to, one, be blessed and amplified and dance in gratitude and have celebration. What are we storing? And what are we restoring? Meaning that which goes into the compost then feeds the seeds of spring. And then the roots that are deep and asleep and the trees that are asleep, they're really preparing themselves. They're alive and they're active, even though it looks like they're asleep, for the beautiful blossoms of spring. But we want to honor the fullness of winter, just like we want to honor and walk with the fullness of fall. So I will have an affirmation video for you. I love pumpkins. I'm going to try to get to the Dallas Arboretum. So if you have a chance, and if you are in Dallas, try to get out there and just notice all the abundance. And then tune into where you really are wealthy. Where you really are wealthy in love. I've taught thousands of children mindfulness. I feel very successful and wealthy, even though financially it may not be it's not where I need to be, but I don't focus on where it's not. I stand in that firm, rooted knowingness that source, supply, the divine nature of God is my life. And as I give, I receive, and there's a circulation of good. And there's more than enough. I'm going to share one quick story. I usually don't share these very often because sometimes people are offended by them. But I have a very challenging time seeing homeless people, and not because they're homeless and in my neighborhood, because it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that they have nowhere to go. It breaks my heart that they sleep outside in the dark, uncovered, not in a mattress, not in a safe space. I don't know their circumstances. Some do have mental illness, but what I've noticed since the pandemic, there's been a lot more people on the street looking for support. And there's this I'm 5'6", so this guy had to be like 5'3", old man, very tiny, very petite. He had on this red, white, and blue hat, and he had this tiny black suitcase, kind of like my father has. And he was up, and he had to be 75 to 80. I didn't ask him. I should have asked him. I saw him on my way to farmer's market Saturday morning, and it's a time of the year where, because of the heat in Texas, there's not as much as far as produce, but I'll still go, and I got a cantaloupe and some flowers and, something here and there. But I had plenty of money left over, but even if I didn't, I still would have done what I did. So, it just haunts me. It haunts my heart. I want to get them on the bus, send them to the resources downtown. I'm actually going to create a list, and I'm going to have bus pass packets for people. And whenever I see them, because there's another woman, her name's Romika, African-American woman that I talk to all the time. And she's always, I see her in the street, she does well, then things fall apart. And so I give from my heart. They say don't give people money. I'm like, you know what, but people need to eat. They do need to eat. So I could tell this guy was down. His head was down. He was walking to the door and back. And Spirit just said, go give him some money. And so I pulled up I made like a U-turn. I pulled up my car and I asked him his name, and his name is Bob. And I ended up giving him $20. And I'm like, Bob, do you know there's resources downtown? And he goes, yes, ma'am. And I go, I'm giving to you because everyone deserves to be safe and fed. And if this can buy you a meal, that's great. I wish I had more. And he goes, well, I need to break this to get a bus ticket. And he was like, he wouldn't look me in the eye. You could just tell he felt like embarrassed and ashamed. And I was just bringing in my heart, my love. And I went back in my car and got $25 more. So I gave him $40 plus $5 for the bus. And he wouldn't look at me in the eye. And he started crying. And he kept thanking me. I'm like, don't thank me. I wish I had so much more to support you. And I wish I'd gotten his story just because I love stories. I love to know where people have been and where they go. Like the guy that installed my AT&T when I first moved here in 2018, he had been homeless for years and then worked his way back into a job. And this pandemic has taken a toll on people. But when Bob had his head down and he was crying, he goes, you're my angel and you're so that I listened to the angels and they said, give you money. And so my whole point of that story is wherever you give, just give with your heart. You have no idea what a difference it will make, whether it's $1, $5, a bus pass, a bag of fresh food, a sandwich that was just made, a cup of coffee. Because Bob and Romika and all the other people are the way that God shows up. And Bob gave me the opportunity to be grateful that I could share this. So that's just my story of gratitude. Share your stories of gratitude and generosity. I do believe that we are called to serve each other, to serve our souls, to lift each other. And Bob hasn't been back in that little corner. There's like this wall and it's shaded that people, every once in a while there'll be a new homeless person. But I made him look me in the eye because I wanted to see his light. And so I affirm for him and Romika and everybody else that they are safe and they are healthy and they are happy and they find a place to belong. So fall, harvest for September. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my story. I share only to inspire you. Already you're generous because you're here, but to inspire you to inspire other people. Because you can't teach a person to fish and take care of themselves if they're hungry. So I always like to feed people first and then give them the skill sets that they need. So many blessings. Thank you. I will have that affirmation video out within the week. I'll be posting some blogs and photos, and I'm just grateful for you. Have an absolutely beautiful evening. Many blessings. Day. It's evening here. That's why I'm saying evening. That's pretty funny. Whenever you receive this, and like I said, I'm working on getting better lighting for these videos and finding a place where they can look a little bit more professional. But for now, thank you for just accepting me in this the way that it is. I give in such graciousness and gratitude to you. Thank you.